Hello and welcome back to on WrestleMania and to AEW WrestleDream out of 10, the first ever WrestleDream. Lots going on this card, but before we get into that, I'm going to start off with a 0 hour. And the first 30 hours of 0 hour was shown on YouTube, but all AEW shows out the matches. After that, Tony Khan welcomed us to the show inside the ring with Inoki's grandson and New Japan stars Rocky Romero and Shibata. They celebrated the life of Inoki before showing video package paying tribute to the legendary wrestler, and Christian was in the back. He said, just very funny stuff. The first bout was a mixed tag match, and with Moriarty, Tony Martinez and Diamante taking on Starks, Athena, Lee and Kojima. The finish, or Konnichiwa, Nail Moriarty with a spinning forearm for the win. Moxley then accompanied Casanoli to the ring for his match against Barnett. He gave great insight and commentary while the two men had a very technical match. Casanoli won with a pin and got a nod of respect from Barnett after the match was over. Wayne and Luchasaurus then met in the third match on the card. Cage and Allen were not there with the so the 18-year-old was all alone against Luchasaurus, and he was too much for him and scored the win with a huge blow to the back of the head. The Acclaimed Daddy then defended their trios title in the pre-show. Matt Caster picked up the win for his team with a mic drop to end the pre-show. I thought on the whole it all worked nicely. Pre-show, no surprise results, but match quality was pretty decent throughout. And like I say, just kind of led in nicely to the main show. The first match was a handicap match for the ROH tag team titles. MJF came out against Righteous with both his titles over his shoulders. He came with a quick promo claiming that he wasn't responsible for attacking Jay White on Collision. From the jump, this match was never designed to be taken 100% seriously. MJF was playing the whole "I'm your scumbag" gimmick by chanting and also getting cheap pops, and of the crowd it was eating up every moment of it. Dutch and Vincent were attempting to be more violent when they were in control. Whenever MJF could get the upper hand, he did everything to get the last and cheers. MJF tried to slam Dutch, but came a slide class to the next to the main goal, regaining the titles on his own without the injured Adam Cole. When he finally hit the stand, the crowd erupted. It was the most pure sports entertainment with a technical showcase. Danielson and Sabay will give you that earlier, but this is sports entertainment. I thought it was done well. MJF really getting over, defending the RH titles on his own, and it's just fun. Starts the show, and that's exactly what you want. 7 out of 10. Before it's time for Kingston versus Shibata for both of Kingston's title. They started off with an exchange of strikes and wasted no time trying to hit each other with their biggest shots. The match was built on mutual respect, but both men were also looking to leave as the other battered and bruised with it all over. The bout was probably the biggest tribute to Inoki on the entire show, because it's clear how much they idolised him and patterned their styles around him. Even though this fight was hard-hitting, they were also great at doing their jobs and letting the rules to the letter. This was about earning the win and not just getting it. Both men fought hard, but Kingston was able to pick up the win. He and Shibata stayed in the ring together, and after it was showed each other with respect and a handshake and a bow. After Kingston left the ring, Shibata's music played, and he received a standing ovation from the crowd, which was lovely as well. It gets an 8 out of 10 from me. This was just two big men really going for it. I thought it worked nicely, beautifully, kind of showing Inoki style. Kingston getting the win. He's so over right now on a great old run. This was just brilliant stuff. Next up was a TBS title match with Chris Statlander taking on Julia Hart. Statlander defended the belt against Hart, obviously on a 28 winning streak. However, Statlander made a name for herself, defeating her, so she didn't care about how many wins Hart had. She just cared about retaining her title. The champ had a significant size and power advantage, but Hart's aggression helped her even the playing field. Even Brody King at ringside, Statlander was too much for her to overcome, especially after multiple tombstone power drivers. This is definitely Hart's best match to date, and a great defence for the champion as well. So in a way, kind of worked nicely for all involved, and gets a 7 out of 10 from me. I thought, Statlander getting a win, obviously with Hart's records really going to put her over, but I think in a way Hart has still been elevated by the whole thing. Fans have become more aware of how well she's done recently, and I think she's definitely been considered more of a serious player in the women's division. Before it's time for the Guns, Fucks and Lucha Bros and Hook and Orange Cassidy battling out to become number one contenders for the World Tag Team titles. Other than Hook and OC, every team has held AEW tag titles before, so this new duo is looking to prove something against the more experienced teams in a way. Trying to find enough time to feature all 8 guys is never an easy task, unless the match has a lot of time, but all 4 teams did a good job of pacing themselves while moving quickly from sequence to sequence. After a few minutes, Phoenix disappeared from the match, and the announcers referenced the doctors were looking over, and this 7 remaining worked their butts off to give the crowd as many near falls and high spots as possible, so the fans in attendance were popping left, right and centre. After a long sequence of counters, super kicks, Buck scored the win, pinning Penta with the BT trigger. And I think with Ray out of the match, it kind of all made sense for the Bucks to get the win. Surprised we're getting again. Maybe we're getting FTR v Bucks, maybe we're not. But yeah, a bit of a surprise, but I think a really fun match. And yeah, the Bucks get another shot at the title. I'm not mad against it. Who would be with how good they are? But moving on then to Swerve versus Hangman Page. Prince Nana danced to his heart out as he accompanied Swerve to the ring for the match against Hangman. They did have a title on the line, so it was all about pride. This was the closest thing on the card to a pure grudge match. The tension was palpable, and both men did a great job at kind of selling the animosity that exists between these two. The crowd was vocal and cheered throughout. After a little while, the crowd seemed to be turning on Hangman and kind of getting behind Swerve more, and the longer the match went, you could feel it's more turning in Swerve's favour. These are two guys with a reputation of being able to put on great matches, so a lot of people came into it with higher expectations, and it definitely lived up to it. The leader of the Mogul Embassy hit a double stomp on Page while the Docs was checking his elbow. Prince Nana was eventually ejected from ringside, but Swerve was able to use his crown as a weapon behind the rest back. This paved the way for him to hit the JML driver and score the biggest win of his AEW career, and yeah, what a big win this was for him. I think, yeah, that could really benefit him in the future. Kind of being elevated now. Swerve, Hangman as well did a great job picking him over here. I thought this all just worked really nicely, and yeah, 8 out of 10 from me. Ricky Starks then took on Wheeler Yuta, and Mox was back in commentary to watch Yuta take on Starks. The bout had a completely different beginning and vibe from the previous clash, but they amped up the aggression until they were trading strikes like two prize fighters. Both men came into the contest with a bit of chip on their shoulder, so it's about two young stars looking to find out who was the best. The story didn't need to be deeper than that. Both having a connection with Danielson from his last feud helped make Starks look the villain. Big Bill showed up at ringside and distracted Yuta momentarily as Starks hit a tornado DDT, and a few minutes later he hit the spear. So he could pick up the win. The distraction here kind of in a way was surprising, kind of in a way wasn't surprising, I suppose. But yeah, it gets 7 out of 10 from me. Would have liked it without the distraction, because I think these both two young, great, technically brilliant wrestlers who could have put on a banger of the match. But I think that was always inevitable that it was going to come. Starks getting a win with the role he's been on recently makes sense. And yeah, it's definitely a really interesting relationship formed between him and Big Bill. Before it's time for the technical dream match, Danielson versus Sabre Jr., the crowd was chanting before they even touched each other, so you could tell everyone was expecting a classic. They started off slow by showing some of their counters to prove they were on the same level. They knew they were going to be full speed soon, so they were pacing themselves. They weren't going for punches or kicks at first. They were trying to grab each other in submissions and took each other down to the mat. It felt like they were all barely trying, but they were putting on a technical clinic. You could see the frustration of growing on Sabre's face every time Danielson would counter something. The American Dragon legacy is already set in stone, but for Sabre, this was about proving he deserved to be thought of in the same way. The longer the match went, the more brutal their offense became. Neither man wanted to leave as a loser, so they started showing signs of desperation on each attempt as the wind faded. This was one of the best displays of technical ability you'll see in a wrestling ring this year. If you see these going one on one, it took 2 running knees, but Danielson was able to pin and earn a harmful victory after a brilliant match, and it gets an 8 out of 10 from me. I thought, yeah, technical wrestling masterpiece that delivered. Danielson just continued to go. ZCJ just proves himself to an AEW fan base, and yeah, I think the more and more we see of these two, yeah, it's just absolutely incredible what they can do in a wrestling ring. And yeah, they really started off a treat here. Danielson getting a win, momentum he's on at the moment is insane. I'm just loving what both of these men are doing. It was then time for the Don Callis family versus Chris Jericho and the Golden Lovers. Jericho was the first man to make his entrance for this huge trios match. The team of Jericho, Omega and Ibushi took on Guevara, Takeshita and Ospreay. Omega and Ospreay started off the match with a nice exchange of counters and takedowns, but it didn't take long for Guevara to come in and test himself against the cleaner. The Demigod tagged in so he could go after his former friend, but the Spanish God got out of there as fast as he could. All the little sub-feuds in this storyline were addressed, but the main conflict as the babyface team had was with Callis, not his actual opponent. The match of the unbearable task of following a match of the year and Kansas. Everyone worked hard to ensure this felt completely different while still being fun in its own way. The rules were thrown out of the window after a while, so tags didn't matter because everyone was fighting for everything else at the same time. The official was just there to make sure no one used a weapon and made the count. This was pure mayhem, but it was good in that regard, and it was gained this is awesome chant. After Callis used Jericho's own back against him, Guevara was finally able to get the big win for his team, and yeah, I think that's a massive moment for Guevara pinning Jericho and Don Callis family, really asserting themselves. A fun match as well, which you could see the crowd loved from start to finish, so I thought on the whole this worked really nicely, and Jack gets 7 out of 10 from me. FTR were then in action, taking on Aussie Open. Dax and Cash were looking to prove that they are still the best tag team in the world, but Mark and Kale had the same goal in mind. The world titles had Aussie Open planned to prove FTR was no longer the top of the mountain. Harwood and Fletcher began the match with some basic chain wrestling. When the 25-year-old saw the takedown, he did a little celebration to generate some heat with a tired Seattle crowd. The show had already been going for about 4.5 hours at this time, and the match started, so a lot of fans were showing signs of tiring down. This was a physical and competitive as you would expect from these things, but the nice thing about about it was that there's much more straightforward wrestling contests than the previous match. This for rules felt like it mattered, so both teams were obeying a bit more instead of just doing whatever they wanted until they got closer to the end of the fight when all hell broke loose. The last handful of matches on the show had to stand out, and everyone did a great job making sure that happened. And after Aussie Open came close to winning a few times, FTR managed to hit Shadow Machine on Fletcher to retain their titles. So yeah, that worked really nicely. Gets a 7 out of 10 from me. Like I said, two great tag teams. And yeah, they were going to go at it, and they always were going to have a banger of the match. I always thought FTR would win, and yeah, in the end they did just that. But I think, yeah, despite an unexpected result, it was still a really, really fun match from top to bottom, and gets 7 out of 10 from me. It was then main event time, Christian Cage versus Darby Allin in the TNT Championship 2 out of 4 for Alls match. The main event saw these two so he could face Allin by himself in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Christian did a lot of delaying and locking up before playing some mind games, and as soon as they did look up, he overpowered Allin with ease and forced him to the corner to establish his dominance. The story they were telling in this bout was that Allin was desperate to not only beat Cage, but also do it in front of his hometown fans. Both men did great work earning their parts, but Cage was operating on another level and has been for some time. This might be the best run of his career in terms of character work. Allin scored the first fall when he used Cage's own turtleneck against him. It looked like he would get the second fall, a coffin drop a few minutes later, but Cage countered with his knees and spent Allin into the announcer's friendly apron. Cage slammed Allin onto the scissors twice to earn a count out for a second fall, trying it out at 1 each. As Allin was being loaded onto the stretcher, Cage was seen ripping apart the exposed wooden surface beneath the padding. The final couple of minutes was truly uncomfortable. Cage hit a frog splash onto Allin while he's on stretch, and then brought him back in the ring as the crowd continued to boo. He hit the kill switch on the wooden boards, but Allin kicked out to get a huge pop at 2. The TNT champion locked him in a sporting deathlock, only for Allin to make it to the bottom rope. The challenger then made a comeback and hit a coffin drop, but he couldn't get the pin. Cage took out the ref with a spear, and as Allin moved out of the way, he took the opportunity to hit Allin with a labourer and grab his title belt. Nick Wayne ran in, took the belt from him, leading to a standoff with Allin and Nick at Christian. Out of nowhere, Nick leveled Allin with the belt, and his mum looked on with horror at ringside. The ref recovered in time to make the count and declare Cage the winner. Not only was this match exciting, but the storytelling also done throughout. Way joining voices for Cage, something that may or may not work, but for now it's a fun swerve. Swing showed up and went after Wayne and Christian, but our arriving Luchasaurus was too much for Legend to overcome. The lights then dropped and the video began to play for as a man drove a classic car down a dark street. The crowd erupted and Adam Copeland, formerly known as Edge, came out to his familiar sound of Messerlingus. He picked up the chair and it was fallen, saying like he was going to attack him, only for him to turn around, take out Wade and Luchasaurus. Cage made a quick exit as Copeland looked on with a roaring crowd behind him. Everything about this was fantastic. Even though she believed Copeland was sharp, it's still executed in an incredible way. Just, yeah, the match throughout, the brilliant match, the technical wrestling, the brilliant wrestling on display, the storytelling throughout it, Nick Wayne turning so brilliantly like that with his mum reaction, and yeah, Edge kind of felt like it was coming, but it took nothing away from the moment. Messerlingus, yeah, it was just a brilliant way to end the show, and I can't wait to see Edge in AEW and what he does. Yeah, this was a brilliant way to end the pay-per-view. 9 out of 10 from me. Overall, AEW WrestleDream gets an 8 out of 10 from me. I thought, yeah, this was a really, really brilliant pay-per-view by AEW. I thought consistently throughout the show that it was just such good quality action, and yeah, kind of culminating in a great little match, in a great main event as well with Edge debuting. Yeah, just a really, really fun pay-per-view from top to bottom. Great stuff. But anyway, guys, that's it for you. Thanks so much for watching. Like, share, subscribe, don't subscribe to AEW Wrestling News, and subscribe to the channel. It's going to be greatly appreciated. Thanks so much for watching. Peace out.